Hey guys, welcome to part two of the marital regimes. I think if you remember correctly, in the last installment, we were talking to Amina Yuda, and in that installment, she was going through the calculation of what happens when you die without a will in community of property, as well as, yes, by then you have moved on, you've gotten married, and, or when I say you, ngathi ngikhuluma namadoda. Essentially what's this? Your partner or your new husband has kids from a prior marriage, that sort of a thing. We decided to take the guy's side of the example just so that we can be a lot more pragmatic with it as to what we think tends to happen in society and to avoid the situation where we're reinventing a scenario and all the factors don't make sense. If you remember correctly, we're looking at this calculation. If I can share it shortly, we're looking at this calculation where the dad essentially has an estate of 5 million. He's got two kids from the prior marriage. And then in the current marriage, they have one child. The stepmom came with one prior child from the marriage, and she has R1 million that she came into the marriage with. So in essence, there's 4 million, 4 children in this marriage, and there's 6 million rand in total to the estate, and the dad passes away. He passes away without a will, and the first thing that they look at is the marital regime, which is the default in community of property without a will. Immediately as a default, half the estate belongs to the wife, half the estate belongs to the man. So when we talk about the dad's estate, the dad passed away, how much are we distributing? We're not talking about 5 million, we're talking about 3 million. And that's because he was married in community of property. So that's the first thing. The wife automatically gets 3 million rands, 1 million of hers split in two, 500,000, 500,000, and 5 million from the dad split in two, which is 2.5 million and 2.5 million. Then what is left is the 1 million that we must deal with from the dad. Let me say plus 4.5 million, so that you see that it's her estate and his estate combined. Then the second part, we do the spousal calculation. In the spousal calculation, we in essence are saying that she brings in, or she's supposed to get the higher of 250,000 or a child's share. And Amina is going to help us shortly in calculating that child's share.
Okay, so how we calculate then the child's share is you have to take the estate, what the estate is the full estate is. So in our example, it's 6 million rand, right? And you divide it by number of children plus spouse.
Yes.
So before I get into that, you said that the stepmom has got a child that she brought into the marriage, okay?
Yes.
Which is not the dad's biological child.
Yes.
If the dad did not adopt that child to be his, that child is not included in number of children, as we've put in here.
Okay.
So,
and by adopt, do you mean go somewhere and fill in forms, or the way they were living on a daily basis?
so my understanding is the full formal process, just taking in the child. So obviously it's not going to be the same as you taking a child from an orphanage and so forth, but it's to then say that this child has been formally adopted by you and you are now responsible for them as well.
Does that include things like, so we now married, the child changes schools, and I then sign as a guardian at the school, I sign as the father at the school? I'm just trying to get into what would the mom...
what entails adoption.
It's an actual adoption form.
Yeah, you know what? That's something I'd have to actually look at, but my recollection of it is that you would have had to have adopted. It's not just a she came with the child, and and you're doing everything for the child, because then it doesn't really say, yes, you were just, I guess you were being a responsible father to this child. But my recollection is that it would have to be a formal one, unless they're going to go and argue and show that, no, this child came here when they were 5 years old. They've only been raised by this man, and this man has done everything. And then that shows as the child being adopted. But generally, that the child that comes with the other spouse does not form a part of this calculation unless they've been adopted.
Okay, so it's gonna be 3 children plus one spouse. Okay.
Yes.
3 plus 1, basically. So 4.
Then the 6 divided by 4. Yeah.
Okay. And we don't use 3 million, even though it's the dad.
Oh, no, sorry. We don't use the 6. We use the 3 million. We use the 3 million.
Okay. Sure. So you saying that the stepmom will get 3 million. Then of the remaining 3 million, she will get a division, a child share, basically, if it's higher than 250,000.
Yes. Or she will get the 250,000.
I'll come back to that because I know the implications. So minimum, she's walking out with 3,250,000 rands.
That's correct.
Okay. But it's marriage, it's love. I don't know why we cringe at these things. So you say 3 divided by 4.
It's also the thing of, if she is left, she's left to look after the kids, right? Let's say they're all minor. That as well. Yeah. So what's the 3 million divided by 4? I'm trying to do it here on my calculator.
It's 750,000.
So she's then entitled to 750,000.
Okay, and then the children also get 750, 750, 750.
No, so then when we go to the children, it might come out to the 750, but I need to do the calculation with you. So then when you go to the children, then you have to take then this 3 mil minus 750.
Okay.
Which is then what?
2,250,000. Yeah.
And then you take that amount and divide it by the number of children that are there. So if that still comes to 750, then they get 750.
Yeah, it should.
It's just that in other situations, it happens that
and we'll do it now. We'll do it now where it doesn't. 750K. So the children all share 2.25 million, right? I think just on that, or child's share, I want to just highlight it, right? Or let me in fact highlight 250,000. And let me make that bold red. I hate using red, but because it always symbolizes danger, but okay. Let's come to this child's share. For argument's sake, let's say the estate was 750,000. Right, 750,000. Nah? And we say 750,000 divide by number of children plus spouse, which is divide by 4. It gives us, let me just do the calculation so I don't test my intelligence on national TV. Yes, divide by 4. So it's 187,500, right?
Yes.
187.5K, right? In this case, 187.5K is what is a child's share. Meaning that from this estate of 250,000, she will get 250,000 because it's the higher. Yes, because it's higher on top of the 3 million that she already received. Then the children
that have been 3 million because the estate would have been 750.
No, that's fine, because remember what we're working with is, okay, I hear what you're saying. So whatever we did, so she would have gotten her own 750. because then the estate would have been 750 left. So this is a 1.5 million rand estate, right?
Mhm.
She would have gotten her 750,000 plus a child's share. And child's share in this case would be the husband's 750,000 divided by a number of children, which is 3 plus 1. And she's getting the higher of that plus 250. So in this case, what your
Not
children will,
the higher, not the higher of that plus 250. It's she's getting 250 or
the higher
child
of that.
whichever is higher. Yes.
Now, this calculation for what the kids have to share, instead of 2.25 million, they now have to share 500,000 amongst the three of them. And that becomes 500,000
160.
divided by 3, 167,000.
Yeah.
Okay, divide by 3. And that is equals to 167,000. This is what the children get.
Yes.
And she gets control.
250. She gets
250,000, and that's because that's the higher amount, right?
That's correct.
And she would have gotten 250,000. So let's just do this high of 250 or in this, we're gonna use the last example. So she would have gotten 150,000 for being a spouse plus 250,000 because it's the higher of, which means that she walks away
No,
with
no, 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 no. Sorry.
Listen. Yes.
Yeah.
Remember,
No, I
it's a
need
1
to
million.
the English.
Remember, it's a 1.5 million rand
Yes.
estate. She gets
Yes.
50%, right?
Yeah. Which is 750.
Let me say 50% and the higher of. You see,
Yeah.
kids that sat in front in class. They
That's
spot the
correct.
mistake. Yes, her part, we happy with her part. It's the second part where I needed to be clear, right? Which is she now gets, so let's do that.
The child shares 187 in this.
187.5. Okay. Yes. And then let me for now remove this because I think that's what's disturbing you.
Yes.
Meaning that in total, because the 250,000 is higher, let's make that green and then bold that. Ooh, that's a horrible green.
Yeah, I wanna that. It needs to do a dark green.
Yes. All right. Meaning that in total, she would have gotten, let's say total
750 plus 250.
750K plus the higher, which was 250, which means
But
that
also remember, practically, she doesn't get the 750. It's already hers.
Yes, I get it. I'm assuming that there's a fight and they feel as if, why is she getting 250,000? Why are we getting 167,000? And then they say, rather we sell all the assets, and one of the assets at 1.5 million, it means that probably the asset will be the house, to be honest. They're actually fighting over the house. She does want to move out. She also does want to live with them. She feels as if they're old. They should be getting their own places. They feel like it was our dad. You name the drama, right? Then could decide, might as well sell the whole thing, okay? And then we deal with it from a legal perspective. And from a legal perspective, after they've sold the house for 1.5 million, no other debts, no other assets, they will first give us 750,000. That's because our first consideration here is the marital regime. Then when we do the spousal calculation, we will say she gets 250,000 or child's share, whichever one is higher. When we do child's share, it says 187,000. It's lower than 250,000, so she will get 250,000, meaning now she's gotten 1 million. And then we will say the children, you now get 250,000 minus what the spouse got, which means that you guys have to share 500,000. and that's 167,000 rand each, right? So she walks away with 1 million, they walk away with 167, 167, 167. And is this essentially where we find a lot of fights happening, where it seems as if, you know, that lady stole our father's estate, that lady cheated us of the estate? How can she walk away with 1 million and we walk away with 167,000, especially in environments where the marriage wasn't even 5 years old, for example, and the kids, let's say they're all adults, so they're all 23, 35, 40. It basically comes across as if we've known dad for the last 40 years. You've just known dad for the last 5 years, and you're walking away with 1 million rand of his money. And especially because by the time we get to this situation, we've sold the house. So meaning that we don't have a family home. You walked away with 1 million. We just walked away with 167,000 rand each. If mom is still alive, she was sitting there thinking, ah, it's fine. You know, when death comes, the truth will come out. And when death vele comes, the truth is that actually she walks away with 1 million rand. You should have fought. You shouldn't have let death be the final decider.
That is the problem with dying interstates, because
Dying
and
without
it
a
goes
will.
to, yes.
Yeah.
And it goes to your question of when we started this. So when you said to me, so when you say the state decides, this is how the state decides. So this is in accordance with the Interstate Succession Act.
Yeah.
That is literally how your estate will devolve if you don't write a will and say, okay, this house is going to A. These cars are going to B. But even though the house is going to A must there must be a usufruct that is registered for B, C, and D. You know,
let's slow down. Let's slow down because we're not lawyers, right? You saying in this worst case scenario, it's worst case because clearly I'm part of the kids that were not in the marriage, right? We saying with a will, what could have happened? So let's assume it's not a joint will, it's a separate will, right? First of all, dad could have said, with my 750K, let me say separate will. Ugh, feels like we're working on a weekend. Hey, separate will. So with a separate will, dad could have said, with my 750,000, could he have said, share everything equally amongst my kids, and basically left the wife just with her 750,000? So I left the wife nothing.
That's correct.
Okay, so with a will, dad could have said, each child must get 250,000 because there's 3 children basically. Yeah.
So you remember, it won't be in monetary terms, it will be in asset terms.
Yes.
Whatever assets he has.
Yes.
But then whoever that child is, they must know that they are sharing with them, the stepmom. So if you're the child that gets the house, you just have a 50% share in the house. Yeah. So basically, when you're doing the transfer, it's just a matter of changing your dad's name to your name, but on the deed, what's going to be written is Lesegisha Mtiane.
Yeah.
And the no, not percentages, you know, deeds just have the names of the people. Yeah. Own the property. So that. It will have the name of the child.
I like property. That's how I know that. Ambitious.
Oh my goodness. I'll speak as someone who likes property. Title deeds will just have the names of the owners.
Okay.
Yes. And so it will have your name and then the mother's name. So then it is known that when this property is sold, it cannot be sold by Lesegisha Mtiane alone. You need consent from the other person as well, because there's a fifth, unless she agrees for you to buy her out.
Okay. And buying her out would be giving her 750,000, her share.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be 750,000 rand, whatever she says
agrees
she
to.
wants for
Yeah,
that house.
yeah,
Yes, then that's what you would have to pay her. So basically what the will does is it just says that, okay, let's say dad has in the 750K, he's just got, let's say, 3 properties.
yeah.
And he just says property 1 goes to child A,
Child
property
1,
2 goes to
child
child
2.
B, and then property 3 goes to child A. But the point is, all that child has is the 50% share that the father has in that property, and then they will share that property with the mother. But it eliminates this thing of there must be a child share that goes to the
Yeah,
spouse. You
yeah.
know, we're dividing this, that, and the other thing.
It
You're actually getting
eliminates
an
1 million, and then now we are sharing 167,000. You get your half, and then we get 250, 250, 250. And tell me if I'm wrong here, ne? Does that then mean in a in community of property situation, there's no such thing as my dad left my mom with nothing? It just means my dad left my mom with nothing from his 50%.
That's correct.
That's correct.
From
Okay.
his 50%, because she has a 50% share in everything
Already.
else. So if he
Yes.
doesn't then bequeath something to her,
Yeah.
then she has is the right she has by virtue of marriage.
Okay. Okay. So she'll always be protected by marriage.
Yes, because of
Okay.
the incommunity. But
Okay.
like I said, obviously, if you guys get along and you don't have these weird, shady things, a joint will golden. Best
What
thing
would it
ever.
Okay, so what would a joint will have done in this situation? Let's just add that extra feature of a joint will. Right?
A joint will could have said that if
If I
spouse
die,
1, yes, so if spouse
yes,
1, if the dad dies predeceased the other spouse, all
yes.
things go to the spouse if that's what they want, because they trust that wait, because they trust that the
So
spouse will take care of everything, right? And that once that particular spouse then passes away,
yeah,
then asset A goes to child A, asset B goes to child B, asset C goes to child C. Or alternatively, like I said, because people always are updating their wills depending on their age and so forth. Or maybe let's say your parents are fortunate enough to live until they're old, like their 80s or whatever, and they start to change their will around their 60s because they see that they're getting old. And
yeah,
then they say that if one predeceases the other, the assets will go to these people, whatever, also all the children, and however they wanted to give to the children. But for example, like with the house, there will be a registered usufruct for the mother, so you can never chase her out of the house or whatever the case may be. And that's how you then protect the interests of the spouse that then remains. So you can do either or. Really?
Can we, in the case of a usufruct, and for those that don't know, a usufruct basically says, so the title deed says who owns the house, and a usufruct says who has the right to use the house, right? So in a will, I can say my wife has title of the house, or even put a different way, because African men tend to be quite proud of their sons, right? In my will, I can say, when I die, the house must go to my son, but my son can never kick his mom out of the house, meaning that she has a usufruct, but he has ownership of the house.
But because a will is drafted by lawyers, it won't say my son can never kick my wife out. It will say there must be a registered usufruct. which
Yes.
means that thing will be attached to the title deed. The
Okay,
same
so
way
it will
that
be a contract, yeah.
yes, the same way that they do with family homes, right?
Yeah.
They will usually attach the family responsibility agreement because the family or the siblings usually nominate one person to have the, to have the title in their name. And that agreement will then list the things that they're allowed to do and not do. And so it must be there at deeds registry so that it is known, even when the property needs to be sold, that this thing is not just owned by Lesehisham Tiane because his name is on there. There are other people who have interests in this particular house, and he cannot alienate the house unless he has received consent from these people.
And then as the owner of the house, right, I can sell the house, can't I?
With the
I can't
registered
sell
user
the
price.
house. Yeah.
Do you mean with the registered user price? You can.
Yes.
But the person that you're selling to must know it comes with a registered user fract.
Yes. So meaning that
No.
yeah. So let's say they say, look, I don't mind. I'm not gonna live in the house anyway. So you might as well, you can sell it to me as long as your mom is a clean lady. She looks like she looks after the property, whatever. Between you and I, it will just be known that the day your mom passes away, that house belongs to me and not to you.
Yeah, you can do that. The only problem, the risk that you run is that, and firstly, actually, I don't know where you're going to find a buyer that's like that, because usually, even if someone isn't going to live there, they want it as an investment. And so they want tenants. You're probably not going to offer to pay rent for your mother to stay there. So you're already running into a problem. I'm just saying that the point is you technically can sell, but you would have to divulge the fact that there is a registered user fract, because you cannot get rid of that user fract because it will be for as long as that particular person is alive.
The reason why I'm going there, it's not even sinister. So mom has a user fract. I've got ownership of the house. I can't afford the rates and taxes and the levies. It makes more sense to sell the house and rather rent mom a smaller place or rent mom a more affordable place. Or even rent, or even rent mom that actual place, except now I'm not the owner. Remember, we discussed in the property podcast, somebody else is responsible for the levies, whatever. I'm just responsible now for mom's rent to stay there.
And that's fine, as long as you have, I think, as long as you have that conversation with mom, because the issue comes in where the person who is affected disagrees with you, because what they will then do is enforce their rights in terms of what? The will. Then you have a problem.
And the right will be the right to live in that house. It's not the right to housing.
No, it will be the right to use that particular house. Yes.
Okay. All right. So the furthest I can go without informing her is to sell the house and rent her living there.
If I guess if that's going to work out with the person that you're speaking to, yes.
Yeah.
But you better hope that it doesn't blow up in your face, because if it does blow up in your face and then she wants to enforce her rights, you're screwed.
What does you're screwed mean? Because you know what I'm looking at? Realistically still, like even if you buy a house from me without a user fract, you still have to get a tenant for it, right? I'm saying to you.
Yeah, but as a buyer, I don't want your mother there. I might have, having viewed that particular, maybe like it's a house, right?
Yeah.
I might find a family, newlyweds with small babies that actually might want to, and we've screened them and so forth. I know longevity, they are going to be able to keep up. Already you're selling this house because you can't keep up with the rates and taxes. So how am I to think that you'll be able to keep it up with your mom, perhaps staying there? And then we have a problem if you can keep it up for 2 years and then after that you can't, because as the new owner, I'm not going to care about your circumstances. All I'm going to do is meet your mother and we're done. Now your mother's going to go back to what? You sold
The
the
use
house.
of right.
She's going to go back to the will. And she's going to
Yeah.
be like, there was a registered usufruct.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of buyers will not buy a property that has a registered usufruct, because too many complications.
Okay.
It's not worth the time.
All right. I think I just wanted to exhaust that one so that we can see the different variations and why a will then matters, why a separate will matters, why a joint will matters, that sort of a thing. So in a joint will, for example, mom would be able to say, hey, he can still sell the house, but he must just always provide housing for me. He can't sell the house and leave me in the street. Is there a usufruct unattached to a certain property?
What do you mean unattached?
As in, dad says, listen, I don't ever want my wife in the streets. I'm giving you this house under the knowledge that you my most responsible and you'll be able to always provide housing to your mom. In the event that you need to sell it, I'll understand that it's probably for practical financial reasons. However, I still want your mom's right to a home still protected inside the world.
You can put it in there. I don't think
It
it's
becomes hard to enforce. Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes very hard to enforce. And remember, if you've got a very smart wife in a joint will, she's not going to agree to that at all. In as much as you might trust her son as well, she won't agree to that if she knows about usufructs and so forth. In fact, probably what they might do is what I was saying, the fact that if one spouse predeceases another, that all things go to that particular spouse.
The remaining one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Only the end can it go how it needs to go.
So the joint will, in essence, is for I divorced, I married, remarried. The two kids, hey, okay, they are too close to their mother. And then I see that, you know what? If I die, my wife is in trouble, actually. I sit down with my wife and I say, sweetie, listen, hey, I don't trust those two jackals. Let's protect your rights as your husband to whatever I wish you can enjoy. Anyway, when I divorced, she got the last house. So now this house as well must be fought for. Let me protect your right to stay at least in this house then.
And that's how you can do it. And if you do it obviously in the joint will, then you're giving. But remember, even if he put it in his separate will, basically he's giving his half to her, which then makes it 100% for her.
Okay, all right. The reason why I also wanted to go that deep, sometimes I get when we tell stories, we the hero in the story. It never occurs to us that actually we could be the better children of the previous marriage and we don't want to look after the current wife. And she's not even bad. It just so happens that, generally moms don't like the new wife. And as the kids, we hotspot mom's hate for the new mom. But factually, she looked after dad until he died. And he died of cancer or he died sickly. And in all fairness, if we're humane, she was actually the wife that was there for him on his dying bed. Wara, 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 wara. And yeah. Okay, so that deals with the in-community chats. I see we have 10 minutes left to deal with the prenup with accrual, and the prenup. I think I'm comfortable, even if we don't deal with the prenup as extensively, because anyway, those are so popular that the amount of work we've done with the in-community, I think it's even a lot more than what normally gets spoken of. We normally get advised, don't be in community of property, and they never say why, they never say how, they just say get to a prenup. And the reality of the situation on the ground is that 90% of the time you will be married in community by virtue of you're not mature enough to bring up the prenup, your partner is not mature enough to receive the conversation of a prenup. or just procedurally you did things in the wrong order. As a result, by the time the time to sign comes, there's already a marriage in place, and you don't know, or you don't even ever get the practical time to divorce and then get into a prenup. Because if I understand correctly, say we lobolad that weekend wedding, it was the 24th of September. We did the alililili. Every time my mom sees her, kemakoti. So we never got time to actually, now we go to Home Affairs to sign on Monday. And on Monday, what does Home Affairs say? Have you guys done the ceremony? I just sign here. Lunch, next. Basically, we never got time to prenup the situation. What is it?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people who are aware of these things usually try by all means to just enter into an antenuptial contract even before the lobola. So
Yeah.
usually you're supposed to enter into it like 3 months before you get married. But at least if you've entered into it, had the meeting, and it's been drafted, and even though the 3 months is really to have it registered at the deeds registry.
Yeah.
But it's there and it's in the process of getting registered. You then have an anti-nuptial contract in place, because all you need to say at Home Affairs when you do sign is, here's the agreement. They look at it, and then on your marriage certificate, it will say that it's not in community of property, but out of community of property, because you can do that even in a customary marriage setting. But whilst we're on it, so I can just what do you call this, wrap up on the two. So there's the with accrual and the without accrual. A lot of people have this misconception with accrual that you only start sharing when you get married. You still actually have separate estates the whole time throughout the marriage. So what accrual does is that it allows you to share when on dissolution of the marriage. So whether that is death or divorce. So it recognizes and acknowledges, for example, with women who are housewives, that even though their contribution was not financial, but there was a contribution, like they probably raised the kids, they were cooking, they did everything. They made sure everything was together in the house. They probably are even the administrator of the whole, of whatever happened in a particular family. And so it's to cater for those types of situations. So basically what happens with accrual, and I'll try to do the calculation quickly, is if, let's say, you get married and then you die, and when you die, your estate was worth 10 million rand and your wife's estate was worth 2 million rand. Basically, the calculation is then your estate minus her estate. So 10 minus 2, 10 minus 2, which is 8. And then we divide that by 2. So that's 4 million. And basically we deduct from your 10 million, the 4 million, and we add 4 million to her estate. And so your estate then becomes 6 million and hers becomes 6 million. It just puts you at par at dissolution of the marriage.
You said
that's all it does. Yeah.
Let me do
this. I know
this
I did.
so that it's still visualizable, right? So this 2 million is whose? Is
the wife.
The wife. Oh, Mara, guys, you're always making the woman poor. Hey, Mara.
I know. I'm doing what society usually does. But yeah, let's say she
usually plays out.
Yes, exactly. And what usually plays out. Because even if she can be smart, has degrees, sometimes what happens is you discuss in the marriage that, no, maybe it's best for her to stop working and just focus on the house. And that is what happens. So the 2 million then comes from what she'd accumulated during that particular time. And that's that. So basically then, yeah, like I said, it's that 6 mil for the wife and 6 mil for the husband's estate. And that comes in also. So that's what they calculate at divorce. And then if you die interstate and you're married out of community of property with accrual, this is the calculation that they do on a marital property regime. Remember, first step I said was the marital regime. So yes, that's how they then go, okay, so your estate is 6 million, not
Slow down. I know airtime ya fela, but we are still here. There.
I'm looking at the time.
Yes. So the 6 million that's left. Nah? So we've done the spouse's calculation. That's correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the 6 million that's left of the husbands. What do we say? Do we say because it's out of community of property, the entire 6 million is what the husband's will speak to?
That's correct.
So all that accrual did was it said, let's first equalize the situation, right? And then now that the situation is equal, the dead husband can now speak to his part of his estate if he has a will.
Yes, if he has a will, he can say this is going to go to so and so, this is going to go to so and so, and so
Yes.
forth. Obviously, according to what is left in the will.
Yes. Okay.
Because what's due to the wife must go to the wife. Similar to in community of property.
Yes.
And then, but also the same steps we followed for what do you call this, for in community of property for interstate, that's what's then going to follow. Yeah, then we're going to do the spousal calculation with using that 6 million rand. So you're going to give her 250 or the child's share, whichever is greater, and then you just give to the children. But that works out obviously if you're married and you have children. Obviously if you're just married and you don't have children, everything goes to your wife. And interstate works differently, basically on different scenarios. There's also for people who don't have children, who are unmarried, and then we divide accordingly.
Yeah, exam pressure really hits you, nah? 1 minute is longer than you think. Look,
but I literally,
yeah. Look, I wanted to say thank you. It's always nice to leave a bit of something so that